Good morning and welcome. My name is Ken McNaughton, and I'm honored to serve as the president of the Brantford-Brant Chamber of Commerce for 2021. I will be your moderator for this morning. Our communities are mourning the loss of an icon today as we wake up and hear of the passing of Walter Gretzky. Even a cursory glance at any social media platform will give you an understanding of the impact he has had on us all. We have suffered a great loss. Walter, you will be missed. I would now like to extend some thanks to our generous event sponsors today: Conestoga College, Six Nations Polytechnic, and Wilfrid Laurier University. MP Phil McColeman and MPP Will Bouma will be more formally introduced later in the program. Our sponsors and guests of honor appreciate you joining us this morning, and I would like to take a couple of moments and get some introductions before we get started. Members of the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors that are joining us virtually today are Angela Adam from Meridian Credit Union, Jacinda Rietsma, Vice President of Finance and Corporate Services at Conestoga College, and Joy O'Donnell from Grand Financial Planning. Our County and City Council liaisons, Councillor Mark Laferriere and Dan McCreary, are joining us virtually as well. Past presidents of the Chamber joining us are Mayor Kevin Davis and Rick Stern. I would also like to acknowledge a few dignitaries that are joining us. We have, as previously mentioned, Mayor Kevin Davis, the City of Brantford, Mayor David Bailey, the County of Brant, Chief Mark Hill of Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, and Chief Stacy Laforme of Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. In a few minutes, we will begin our conversation with our MP and MPP about issues identified by our Advocacy Committee and by members of the Chamber of Commerce. We have some prepared questions and invite viewers to engage us directly using the Slido app or the Slido website. Throughout the conversation, you may visit slido.com or download the app to enter your questions for our guests. The event code is #MP/MPP, and the access code is #22358. You may also like questions that have previously been posed, but from another viewer, to help us gauge the response or the interest in that question. We will now hear from today's sponsors. Please welcome Trish Weigel-Green, Associate Vice President, Student Affairs for Conestoga College.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Trish Weigel-Green, Associate Vice President of Student Affairs at Conestoga College. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to say good morning and to provide some updates on behalf of the college. And I want to thank the Chamber for continuing to host this event, now in a virtual environment. Although a lot has changed over this past year, there are some important things that haven't. We remain committed to our students and to providing a high-quality educational experience. And we remain committed to Brantford as a partner and member of this great community. The speed at which the college transitioned both our academic delivery as well as our services to a remote environment is to be commended. The flexibility of our faculty and employees and their ability to think creatively, to teach and support in new ways was never in doubt, and we continue to be impressed by their efforts. Our students have in turn been resilient and positive. Remote learning can be difficult in the best of times, but when compounded with social isolation, the outcomes can be difficult to bear. We are well aware of the toll the pandemic has taken on the mental health of our population and are acutely aware of its impact on our students. I'd like to mention one incredible initiative that we've introduced recently. Conestoga mailed 9,350 Press Pause kits to first-year students. These mental health kits were designed by our Bachelor of Design student, Taylor Jackson, as part of her participation in the college's Venture Lab Incubator, where students are taught to move ideas into ventures. Taylor's thoughtful, well-researched, beautifully designed kits enabled us to put our mental health philosophy into action. The kit includes various evidence-based tools. The types of tools can range from journal prompts to exposure techniques designed to help with self-reflection and growth. If there are any organizations who might be interested in the kits for their own employees, or employers who'd like to participate in the Venture Lab, You're welcome to reach out and we can get you connected. We've also been busy with our academic programming in Brantford, and I thought I would share a few highlights. Our very important work in training frontline healthcare workers continues. Our first group of personal support worker students in Brantford started in January with a lab operating out of 274 Colburn Street beginning this month. We are actively working with local long-term care homes and community care employers for student work experience opportunities. Our first group of early childhood educator fast track students graduated in the spring of 2020, one of whom was the recipient of the Governor General Medal. Our first 2-year ECE diploma cohort is set to graduate this spring. Our 220 Clarence Street childcare site opened in the fall of 2019 and is equipped with a technology-enhanced classroom that allows us to observe the children's programs in real time to support students' applied learning and understanding of child development and curriculum development for early years programs. Similar to PSW, the Brantford community supports field placement opportunities for our students, which are mutually beneficial to the community and to our program, and supports the Brantford Early Learning Community Workforce Development Strategy. The partnerships between Conestoga and the community continue, particularly in our trades area. I'll mention just 2 of the new programs offered in the past year. First, the Agricultural Equipment Operator Pilot Program, funded by the federal and provincial government with intakes in 2021 and 2022, is a partnership program with the Workforce Planning Board of Grand Erie, County of Brant, South Central Ontario Economic Development Corporation, and Libro Credit Union. Second, Construction Foundations, which covers carpentry, plumbing, and electrical, and is a partnership program with St. Leonard's Community Services, funded by Skills Advanced Ontario. We ran 3 intakes in 2021 and are awaiting for approval for continuation. All of that is to say, we value the contributions by the federal and provincial governments, as well as the support we have received by the local government and business and community partners. We look forward to continuing to work closely with our valued post-secondary partner Laurier and the Brantford-Brant community.
Thank you, Trish. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Heidi Northwood, who is the Senior Executive Officer of the Brantford campus of Wilfrid Laurier University.
Good morning. I'm Heidi Northwood, Senior Executive Officer at Wilfrid Laurier University. I'm delighted to bring greetings on behalf of the Brantford campus, located on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. It's a great pleasure to stand with our colleagues from Six Nations Polytechnic and Conestoga College to co-sponsor this event. On behalf of the university, I offer our sincere thanks to the Chamber for making this virtual gathering possible. I'd also like to thank MP Phil McColeman and MPP Will Bouma for taking time to share their important insights today. It's hard to believe that just over a year ago, many of us gathered for the 2020 MPP breakfast, unaware of the changes and challenges that were soon to come within weeks. While no one could have predicted the profound, sustained ways that the pandemic would impact our daily lives, the caring and resilience demonstrated by this community is entirely in keeping with its character. We're so pleased to have been able to play a role in pandemic recovery and response. In the early days of the pandemic, we were able to donate PPE to the Brant Community Healthcare System. And this winter, we were able to offer the Lucy Marco Place Residence Building as a winter shelter for some of our most vulnerable citizens. And our staff and faculty have initiated fundraisers and donation drives to support essential community resources like our local food bank. Laurier's academic programming pivoted in March to primarily online learning. While our campuses appear quieter than normal, progress continues on key initiatives, including renovations of One Market, formerly Market Square, which promises to become a hub of student and community activity. We also recently retooled our business incubator Launchpad to meet the specific needs of the Brantford-Brant business community. And as has been reported in the media recently, we're exploring the potential for a cultural hub featuring performance spaces in the former cinemas of Market Square for the broader community. Although challenging, this past year has offered reasons to celebrate too. Creative writing instructor Sivankam Tamavangsa won the Scotiabank Giller Prize for her collection of stories, How to Pronounce Knife. Thanks to a gift from the late Miss Mary Stedman, we were able to name Sivankam the first ever Laurier Stedman Fellow. We're thrilled that she'll continue to be a resource in our community for 3 more years. The spirit of Laurier Brantford and its programming exists, we think, at the intersection of the humanities and technology. The disruption of this past year certainly drove home the essential role technology now plays in all of our lives. But it's also reminded us of the fundamental need for human interaction, real connection, real understanding of each other. As vaccine rollout begins, we look forward to a return to in-person work and learning. Our students and graduates will be ready to face the future with purpose. They are equipped with the skills, curiosity, and hopefully the humility needed to creatively engage with a complex world in a way that's uniquely innovative and just, we hope, uniquely Laurier. Thank you. Enjoy this morning's program and be well.
Thank you, excuse me. Thank you, Dr. Northwood. I'd now like to introduce Linda Parker, who is the Senior Advisor for the President's Office of Six Nations Polytechnic.
Sego, hello, and good morning. At last year's event, I stood before a crowded room and said, "The world as we know it is changing." What an understatement that was. On behalf of SNP, I wish to thank the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, partners, students, staff, and our communities for their extraordinary efforts and contributions during this unprecedented time. As I reflect on the challenges and peel back the layers of COVID-19, what I find at the very core is our collective and collaborative work. Today, this work is stronger and more vital than ever before, and worth celebrating. Some of you know the Haudenosaunee used stories as a teaching tool. And since we've all endured common experiences, I wanted to share some SNP stories with you. The Spring Thaw. Prior to COVID-19, SNP students applied to and registered for classes in person, and instruction was face-to-face. In spring 2020, after the thick, rigid ice of the Grand River broke, SNP in our canoe and education partners in their vessels found ways for all learners to complete their programs of study. A sizzling summer. Apart from a small outdoor convocation and drive-by celebration, summer literally was too hot to handle at SNP. Our programs and classes were either canceled or delayed. All hands were on deck implementing remote systems and pivoting the fall semester to online. Nearly 250 courses were adapted, 100% of SNP's university and SNP STEAM Academy courses were redesigned, and 125 college and skilled trades courses were converted. The winds of change. By fall 2020, and for the first time in SNP's history, we were fully prepared to provide hybrid delivery in every program offered. We also undertook steps to fully integrate operations. We hope to eliminate manual processes by the end of 2021. Yay, SNP! A new virtual reality. SNP held 35 all-staff meetings in 2020, and students and instructors were supported virtually and by telephone when off campus. This was our small way to see and connect with everyone, engage their well-being. The 3 R's. We believe that reciprocity is key to resilience and revitalization of our communities. SNP worked hard, inside and out. In partnership with community, new supports are being developed to boost mental health and wellness of all. Another project, EVIL, no, not that kind of evil, Excellence in Virtual Learning, focuses on the new needs of students and instructors in this new environment. Beyond our institution, like many here today, SNP engaged in recovery strategies and critical consultations held by Ontario on the future of post-secondary education and labour market challenges. And because access to connectivity is a challenge at Six Nations, SNP is also part of a community-wide broadband initiative. As we look to the future, SNP plans to build on the positive gains that emerged from COVID-19 and prepare for a new post-secondary landscape that is poised to consist of short programs to help our communities reskill, upskill, rebuild, and ultimately prosper. To close, SNP is extremely proud to be part of the education community serving Six Nations, Brantford, Brant, and broadly the Grand Erie region. Be well and stay safe. Nyawa.
Thank you, Linda, and thanks to all of our generous sponsors for this morning. It is now my pleasure to introduce Phil McColeman, MP, and MPP Will Bouma. Phil McColeman has served as MP for Brantford-Brant since 2008. Prior to being elected, Phil served as Vice Chair of the Brantford Police Services Board, Director of the Brantford-Brant Chamber of Commerce, Governor of Wilfrid Laurier University, and Director and President of Lansdowne Children's Center. Phil and his wife, Nancy, have been married for over 45 years and are the proud parents of 4 grown children, and they have 4 grandchildren. Will Bouma is currently the Member of Provincial Parliament for the riding of Brantford-Brant. He also serves as Parliamentary Assistant to the Premier. Prior to being elected as MPP in 2018, Will served as the Brant County Councillor in 2014, following 8 years of service on the Committee of Adjustment. Will has been a member of the Brant County Board of Health, the Brant Waterways Foundation, and has volunteered with the County of Brant Fire Department since 2008. After graduating with a Doctor of Optometry, Will chose Brantford-Brant as the best place to live, work, and raise a family. He practices in the village of St. George, where he resides with his wife, Joni, and their 5 children. Welcome, Phil and Will. Thank you for joining us. Let's get started. So, question number 1. The most significant global public health, economic, and government challenge in our lifetime is COVID-19 pandemic. Where did your government deliver wins? Where did it fall short? What more needs to be done? Let's start with MPP Will Bouma.
Oh, thanks, Ken. It's great to join everyone today. I trust you can hear me. And I wanted to begin by just saying my condolences to the Gretzky family. And, I never had the opportunity to get to know Walter very well, but every time I met him, he was always full of joy and so full of community spirit. And we pray for comfort to the family and that he would rest in peace. Secondly, I'd like to thank the Chamber for putting this on today. And to find an innovative way of us being able to have our conversation. It is great to gather. I miss face-to-face meetings very, very much, and I look forward to that coming back again soon. And then I would also like to thank Conestoga, Laurier, and Six Nations Polytech for their sponsorship today in order to make this happen, and for all the technical support, people working behind the scenes to make this a reality. I think the comment that COVID-19 is one of the most significant things that we've ever faced, and it's something that none of us ever signed up for. And so how do you react to an existential threat to, in many ways, the very way of life that we have enjoyed, and time still will tell us exactly what life will look like after all of these things. And so the guiding light that has been guiding our government through this is number one, to listen to the people that you have in the positions to give you the advice that you have there. And we've been following that to the best of our ability, and trying to balance that with the needs of the people also. And so, we've made significant investments in the community, supporting our municipalities, supporting small businesses. We've done everything that we can to keep people safe, and to build that ring around our elders. And I have to say hats off to Mark Hill and the elected council in making those moves to keep their elders safe. And I think that's such an incredible testament to what we can learn in our relationships from our neighbors on the territories. And so, but I have a 140-page document about that I have somewhere in my email that tells about the investments that we've made, everything from agriculture, small business, and everything else. But at this point, as we're getting through the tail end of this lockdown period, I have to say that I'm just so amazed that the people in the community have stepped up to the plate and continue to step up to the plate in the ways that they have to support each other. And we've hit some bumps in the roads and difficulties there, but I think providing the protection and the support in order to get people through COVID, small businesses especially those that are really suffering. I spent all January taking phone call after phone call from individuals and small business owners about the different ways that this has impacted them. And, and then I'm still seeking for ways to be able to help out people that kind of fall outside of those lines. I had a conversation with someone the other day who, needs the vaccine, but falls outside of where we're at right now. And then the businesses also that seem to fall outside of that. I had a long chat yesterday as the parliamentary assistant to the premier with ski resort owners and the difficulties that they've experienced. If where have we fallen down? I think we just crossed over 7,000 deaths in the province of Ontario secondary to COVID vaccine. And I know from my relationship with the premier that he carries 14.5 million people around on his shoulders, and every failed business, every death weighs very, very heavily on him. And I think where I feel it the most keenly, and I witnessed that firsthand when we were doing 1 hour vigil at a fallen firefighter from one of our stations in St. George last spring. And I feel the most deeply for people that have gone through loss of loved ones during this time, because COVID has so dramatically impacted the way that we can have mourning. And I was standing there, and a young mom at home with a couple of kids by herself the day after her husband had passed away, instead of being surrounded by community because of this virus. And I look forward to getting through that. So I think we've laid the groundwork for recovery, even though we're in the midst of this, and we're going to continue to do that, because that's how we'll get through this. We'll get through it together, and by providing the supports to get everyone through safe and healthy with the ability to thrive. I think I'll just end it there to start with.
Phil, your thoughts on the question?
Waking up this morning and listening to the news that my dear friend Walter Gretzky had passed is on my mind, and I would be remiss if I didn't extend my condolences to Kim, Wayne, Keith, Glenn, and Brent. I've known Walter since I was 16 years old, when he was my junior B hockey coach. I known him through the years in the community when he installed telephones in my offices of my business ventures. And then I've become really close to him during my 12 and a half years as the Member of Parliament. So today for me is a day of large reflection on an iconic life, a life that is a national treasure, and that it is, albeit a sad moment, it's a moment for celebration of a family, of a life, of a man, a patriarch, who is an example with his gratefulness and his humble humility to everyone, to our country especially. So that said, I will now move on to the question, wins and failures during the pandemic was the specific question, I believe, Ken. And so there have been some wins. Some of the larger wins are with the large big box stores. They're with people who have fraudulently sent in claims that have been paid by the government. The government has rolled out some good, strong programs for businesses, for individuals, CERB and business loans. That's a good thing, although it hasn't been focused. And that's why there has been great abuse. And now we learn that those people will not have to repay those monies back, even though they were taken in a fraudulent way. So they're both will win, I suppose, and a loss. On the other side of it, the mistakes are numerous and hard to articulate in a very short period of time. But our reaction to this as a country was greatly flawed. We had pandemic plans in place right across this country. Every province had one. The national government had one. The federal government had one. And they were thrown out the window and ignored by every premier and the current government of Canada. Instead, we put all our eggs in one basket, and that's understandable at the time because it is a panic situation into the care of health professionals. And by no way am I diminishing the health professionals, but really now what we're seeing is all of the other effects of COVID are having on society and how it's a much larger conversation. It is a national crisis from many angles. And so when the mistakes are made, such as had happened with not closing our borders, as has recently happened right at the start that many countries did, and now we're seeing the results that they're having versus what we're having, the context of that is startling. They're succeeding, we're not succeeding all that much. Vaccine procurement is another area of huge error. We put all our baskets as a country into one supplier in China, believe it or not, CanSino, and come time to export the vaccines to Canada, the Chinese government decides no exporting. So we're left to scramble behind every other major country to procure our vaccines. We are currently as a country about 6 months behind all the major development countries in the world. The last I checked, we were 45th in the world in terms of country of vaccinations. The top country in the world is Israel. They've vaccinated just over 80% of their population. Most jurisdictions in the United States have vaccinated close now to 25% of their population. We're lingering in the single digits, right around 7%. The Prime Minister was boasting that we'll get to 8% by the end of the month. So that's the context of the to answer your question, Ken, which is the wins and some of the things that have gone that by any standard of business measure have not worked or failed.
Thank you. And I apologize to you, Phil, and to all of our viewers. We're working on some technical difficulties to try and get not just a voice, but a picture for you. So hopefully that will happen soon. What needs to happen for the pandemic to be declared over? And I'm going to go back to you for this one to begin with, MPP Will Bouma.
There we go. Make sure I'm unmuted. Thanks, Ken. That's a difficult question to answer, and so because again we are waiting for vaccines here, but I think through the vaccine rollout and through what we were able to accomplish through the lockdown that we had to impose just after Christmas, we've had a reproduction number of the virus under 1 since January 7th. So we can speak about the effectiveness of what it was to have the stay-at-home order in place. And as the Premier has said, we cannot have a police state. We just don't have the personnel, and we trust the good hearts of Ontarians in order to do the right thing. And we've been able to see that happen too, so that our numbers have been continuing to go down. And as we've had some access to vaccines and to be able to prioritize where we put those vaccines, we've had some incredible results in our long-term care facilities as far as the rate of infection and even the rate of loss of life through that. And that's been really, really encouraging to see. And when you think about that, then the effectiveness of the vaccinated population and being able in our most vulnerable population, and what that means is that somewhere between the number of people that have actually had the virus and recovered and the number of people that have been vaccinated, I believe it's like a 70% number to get that herd immunity. I think we can get to the place. But having spent 3 years on the public health board, every virus comes in waves, and we and almost always, and looking back to 1918, you have a first wave, a worse second wave, and then later on a third and fourth wave. So how exactly those things will shape up with the measures that we've taken still have to be exactly evaluated. But you do see light at the end of the tunnel when you can consider that we're getting through these things. So if we can we're ready to go. I have regular conversations with Dr. Banke at the health unit. They are ready to go, and I know there's been some bumps in the road. I've been reading that in the paper, but they can dramatically increase their number of vaccinations if they have the vaccines available to them. So then everyone who wants the vaccine can get the vaccine, and then get through this so that we can get back to where we want to be, and we can interact the way that we have. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. I can't tell you what it will take to be declared over. I am not an epidemiologist or a infectious disease specialist, but I do see hope, and I do see light at the end of the tunnel as we get through this.
Thank you, Will. Phil.
I'll answer that question quite directly. And that is, this will be over when the public demands it. And I say that from a context that comes at this in a very pragmatic and practical way. We have seen the context of this rollout in a specific way that it is being exploited politically. And those of you who, let me put it in this context. I had a great conversation with a constituent who I did not know, who called me on Monday, wanted to speak with me. He started out this pandemic, when we started out about a year ago, he described his story. This is an individual, by the way, who is a blue-collar worker here in Brantford, and he's 62 years old, and he's thinking of retiring. And he was planning his retirement during this time, this very time right now. And he said, I was so instilled with fear in March of last year when all of this came to light. His wife was out of the country. He got her back immediately. They lived in fear, he said, for about 3 months, and then started to really contextualize what was happening. And it's interesting, his story, because it tells the story of going from absolute fear, which continues to this day in many, many circles in society, through his transition to saying to me on the telephone on Monday that there's something else going on here. His instincts are telling him that something else is going on. And I myself have reflected on his words because, again, this is the kind of grassroots, down-to-earth person whose instincts are saying, what else is happening? And I know a lot of people in society are asking themselves that question. What is really happening? And I can say, and I suppose I get a certain, I'm cut a certain amount of slack because I am not going to be seeking re-election here. So please forgive me if I am too blunt about these things. But I've got to tell you that I tend to see this in a very different context, and I see the exploitation of this in some ways for political purposes that I'm startled equally as this individual has brought himself to thinking. And what is it specifically? I can't tell you specifically. Just keep your instincts sharp, watch what's happening, listen to what people are saying. We need a more fulsome discussion in this country. The centralization of power and the way that this has been managed is going to be analyzed in the history books. And we are living it right now. The world has changed. We should be doing all the things. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I can tell you that. I'm not even close to that. I think we should be doing the public safety things we're doing, but there's more at play.
Thank you, Phil. Economic recovery. What are the plans to get back to a balanced budget with your level of government? And I'm going to start with.
I'm sorry, did you say, I can't hear you all that well.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, okay. You started
me
with me,
or
Ken?
Phil?
Yeah, let's start with MPP Will Bouma this time.
Okay, no, thanks, Ken. I think I'm unmuted. That is a very, very good question and topic of conversation that I've been able to have with the Minister of Finance and the previous Minister of Finance for sometimes hours at a time. Obviously, we had a very strong plan in place in the province of Ontario to return the province to balance, and we were hoping to have that done in the next couple of years. And then COVID happened, and it became necessary to spend vast amounts of money that we didn't have, and actually counting on even the bigger amounts of money that the federal government could put into that equation in order to get to protect and support the province through that. So how do you pay for that? And the reality is that we cannot take away the benefits that people are counting on right now to get through COVID, and we continue to outlay significant amounts of money into business supports and individual supports in order to get through that. And even just this week, we have announced another $1.25 million for the city of Brantford just for COVID recovery, and for the county of Brant another $434,000 for COVID recovery, with no specific budget thing in mind, but just to get through this. Transit supports announced previously and continuing. And I have to say, it's been such a great partnership to have the municipalities working together on that too. And I have to say, hats off to Mayor Kevin Davis, because the city was very strategic in how they spent, say, their transit support money, and they were the municipality that spearheaded through me to the ministries involved to be able to carry over transit support money rather than having to have it end at the end of the fiscal year for the province at March 31, but to be able to carry that forward. And now with the extra, we can get our municipalities through that. And so what does it take to recover? And we need to lay a very strong framework in place so that businesses and individuals can thrive. And I think one of the most significant changes that we've made in this province of Ontario is to drop the green energy extra costs off for our businesses so that they can grow. And with the businesses coming into the community, we are primed for that growth, and to be able to compete with Michigan, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania for those businesses that are looking for a home and political stability that we don't see necessarily in the States right now, I think is very, very good. And so that's on the one end. On the other hand, we've been making significant investments into getting our workforce ready for that potential growth also. And so the partnerships that we have with Six Nations Polytech and with Conestoga, the agricultural worker program that we started up, the PSW training that we've been doing, and those investments into the trades and into higher education so that people can gain new skills and upskill what they have to be ready for what's coming. Because what we have to do is we have to have at least a decade of uninterrupted growth in the province of Ontario, so that without sacrificing the programs that are keeping people safe and supporting them right now, so that we can see the economic growth coming that will spur that. And so to have great partners with the municipalities that we have who want to see that economic development happen and have those jobs here, and to create and build their lives here, so that we have been and can continue to be the greatest place in the world to live, work, play, and raise a family. And that's really been the focus of our government getting through this. Number one, protect, support, and then the recovery piece. So if you look through the budget from last November, it was 6 months late, but we really started laying that groundwork. And I'm looking forward to, in a few weeks here, the next budget coming out and being able to take that to the next level.
Thank you, Will. MP Phil McColeman.
Ken, thanks for that question. Being a small business person the majority of my life, small business has been decimated. And that's the backbone of our country, economically. To answer your question specifically, there is no plan. And there's no political party offering a plan at this point in time of bringing our books back to balance. The debt load is so extreme now. This is just at the national level. I'll give you the numbers. We're just approaching 1.5 trillion, that's with a T, trillion dollars of debt as a result of the spending and the printing of money and the Bank of Canada willingness to let this happen and the debt grow to this level. It is if there's anything to fear in the future, it is our indebtedness and the debt we're leaving to my grandchildren and the generations to follow. And we can bet all we want on future business growth. But if we don't get this spending under control, and soon, history tells us, and it's Canadian history, that in the mid-1990s, the then Liberal government of the country, under Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin as the finance minister, hit a debt wall. And the debt wall was, at that time, measured by GDP. And it was 65%. If your economy hit 65% federal, just federal, forget the provincial debt. If you add it on and you add on personal debt, it's way over 100%. But federal debt was at a point of 65% of the GDP. That's an important number to contextualize this. Because what happened at that point is that the country could no longer borrow money. So in other words, the lenders said they shut the door. They shut down Canada's ability to borrow. And if we can't borrow, then we can't fund the programs that all of us have become reliant on in this country to be at our disposal and to live the quality of life we did. So what happened, and this is a fact and this is history, is that government did the right thing. Paul Martin did the right thing, and Jean Chrétien. What they did was they started cutting expenditures and government spending. And where the most difficult cut that was experienced in those years, and I remember them well, I was in business in this community, was a 35% cut to health care funding by the federal government. So where are we today? We're at about 60% of GDP right now, federal government, with the debt load that we have right now. So we've got, if the same measures hold today, and I'm not an economist to say that people won't lend beyond 65% of GDP, but if the same applies to what we were experiencing back in the mid-1990s, there will be a debt wall that we hit. And we will be faced as a country, not willingly, but forcefully faced to balance and bring down our debt levels. And there's one way to do it, which they did at that time, and that is to cut government spending. I hope we don't get there, frankly. Frankly, I hope we can manage it, and it's all rosy. But I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Our debt and spending more going forward is some of the most for me, as a, you know, as a former small business person, is a scary proposition.
Thanks, Phil. I'm going to keep you on the hot seat for a minute. Our region is primed for growth. What are the key transportation and infrastructure priorities in the riding that your level of government or your party aligns with, personally supports?
Another great question. There's one priority project in that I have been not a primary person because it's provincial. We need better health care in this community, infrastructure. We need better health care infrastructure. That means bricks and mortar. That means a new hospital. As I go through Cambridge and I see a new hospital, as I go through other communities of our size who have gone through that growth cycle, there has been a new and improved healthcare infrastructure. That is first and foremost on my mind. Roads, yes. Proper transportation, yes. Those are givens. Those are always constant, and we're always, governments at all three levels are always funding those and working towards making sure they meet the needs of the citizens. But we have a healthcare deficit in this community in terms of what we have to work with as infrastructure. It's not about, I'm not talking about people not providing first-class service within the facilities we have, because they do, and they work as hard as any healthcare workers anywhere in this province, and they provide quality care. I'm talking about state-of-the-art facilities. That's where we're deficient. That's what we must work on.
Thank you. Will?
No, great. That's an incredibly insightful question, and I appreciate you, Phil, for taking that bull by the horns, because you're absolutely right. We do have a massive infrastructure deficit in the region. Actually, you know, we had another death on Highway 24 last year that was unnecessary. But people need to get to and from work. They need to be able to do economic activity. Businesses need to be able to move goods and services back and forth. And so this is something that I've really been tackling head on. We have our major north-south corridor was never designed for the type of traffic that it sees every single day. And so to be able to work with our Minister of Transportation, Caroline Mulroney, looking for solutions to that long term, not just to make the highways safer right now so we don't see any more wasted life. And I'm not going to go there because of my history with the fire department. That just won't be good for me mentally this morning. But there's been enough. When I've had the opportunity to tour the mental health facilities in the Brant community healthcare system, it remains, even with the small investments that have been made, shocking. And so it is an extremely high priority for me to be able to work through. And you know, one of the most difficult parts of this job is to figure out exactly how deep some of the infrastructure deficits are. And but you see the groundwork being laid for a path forward. And you know, a few years ago, the province had to step in and take over the Brant community healthcare system, and the work that was done there by Bonnie Adamson was just absolutely stunning. And when I see the improved morale, you know, you see the hope in the staff and the situations that they have to work in, and the patients still in the hallways, but you can feel a sense of hope through that. So I say hats off to Dr. David McNeil for the work that he's done at the hospital. Hats off to the board that's there, and the meetings that we've had with Phil and myself and people from the community, and looking forward to that. And I am really looking forward to being able to see some sort of results on being able to get the community engagement piece done for the hospital. And moving on from that, as far as infrastructure things go, to be part of a government that's really moving forward with getting broadband infrastructure, expanding natural gas into our rural communities, that is looking at ways of being able to get our community moving at the speed of business, is very, very exciting. But there's a long ways to go. You know, I've always said things need to happen at a local level, and to see the work that the city council and the county council have been doing in order to move forward those pieces of infrastructure. I just read in the paper this morning that, you know, Paris is going to be getting 800 new houses on the old golf course, and whatever your thoughts on that are, and you know, we're going to see that growth. But to be able to work with municipalities that are looking for ways to be able to move people back and forth, and to have communities that want to work together in order to bring those infrastructure projects that are necessary for good, smart growth to the province of Ontario is very, very exciting for me, so that we can advocate for those things, so that by the time those houses are built, it'll be very exciting if we can somehow manage to get the infrastructure in place so that it can be seamless and move those things through. But all of this stuff is moving forward. I think we're still in the middle of a pandemic right now, and yet being able to lay the groundwork for how we can get through this, and not to compare the commitment made by the province and the federal government to anything like the Second World War. But what you saw happen post World War was this economic boom, and how do we recover from the massive amounts of expenditure that had to happen through COVID in order to protect and support people. The only way that we can do that is to have massive amounts of growth afterwards, and to be able to be part of, I would say, a visionary team that sees that moving forward, and to be in a community where I see partners moving forward, and the work that's being done by companies like Vicano in their visionary path forward in order to make that happen. It's a very difficult time, but on the other hand, it's also a very hopeful, exciting time, because I think we're going to get through this, and our community and the kind of people that we have here, we're going to see that explosion happen. And that is very exciting to me, and especially with the community leadership that we have right now too, in putting those pieces together. It just makes my job so much easier when I'm advocating for those things at the provincial level. So you know, I'm excited. We have the pieces in place. We still have work to do. I think the county and the city still need to have a joint master transportation plan. I'm going to keep banging that drum, and a regional master transportation plan that will work together with everyone else. But I think the key foundations have been laid. The leadership places put in place. You know, whether you see the development of the health hub in Paris, the reuse of the Willett Hospital, the other pieces going in, it is good to see the progress that we're making even through these difficult days.
Thank you, Will. Our generous sponsors this year, Wilfrid Laurier University, Conestoga College, and Six Nations Polytechnic, are tremendous economic drivers in the community. What do you identify as priority areas of focus in education, skills, and training, education, trainings, and skills development? And I'll start with you again, Phil.
Great. Great for asking that. Over the last 12 months, I got to tell you, the most common meeting I've had with businesses, mainly medium-sized manufacturing, have been the fact that they have jobs available, many of them. However, they can't fill them. And most of the jobs that they're offering are entry level. They're people who are starting as maybe their first job. I know the MPP and the mayors have been involved in some of these meetings and some of these discussions. I've had one-on-ones with others. So when it comes to our great institutions locally, I think the partnerships between them are extremely important. When I listen to Conestoga's practical programs that they're running out of the airport, and the kind of skill set that they're offering students, my hats are off. When I see the community outreach that Laurier is doing with local businesses to try to determine exactly where the stream of education should go. Clearly, I think in our community, it should be to teach people basic work ethic. As crazy as that sounds, the feedback when asked questions of the owners of these companies is that they may have, in one case, 50 jobs could be made available. They interviewed and 20 people decided that they would start in a position. 1 week after they were at work, they had two of those 20 left on the floor of their facility. So why is that? It's because these people just don't have the basic skills. And I know Conestoga has specifically started programs which teach people how important it is to get up in the morning when their alarm clock goes off, because their employer's expecting them to be there at 7 a.m., not 8 a.m., not 9 a.m. And they expect them, when they're on the floor, to actually do the work and not be neglecting the task at hand. So I say that that I know these are higher levels of institution, and I must say that Six Nations Polytechnic has done a fantastic job of helping individuals with those basic entry-level skills as well. So I think, frankly, all the institutions need to realize that there are jobs available in the city. I know another company that could hire right now 80 welders they've got orders coming in from all over the world in our community. So jobs are available in certain skilled trades and streams, no question about that. We need to continue to develop that. We need liberal arts to continue on so that we have the kind of educators that we need in the future. But I'm telling you, the biggest need right now in this community are people to do entry level. And if they show some ambition in the job, they will advance very, very quickly in those companies, no question.
Will.
Okay, sorry, I forgot to mute myself, so there was banging doors and things like that. I apologize. Ken, I do not want to create more work for Heidi or for Trish or for Linda at SNP. But if you ever get the chance, you have to spend half an hour or an hour chatting with Linda from SNP or Heidi Northwood from Laurier, or if you get the chance, John Tibbetts from Conestoga. Because, one of the great things about this job is, there's some things that I've had to work on that I feel were left alone for a very long time and have big deficits. But in so many other ways, I just get to take part in the hard work that other people have done, and I guess even get a little share of the credit for that. But we have such visionary leaders in the educational space right here locally, and the work that's being done. We need 100,000 tradespeople in the province of Ontario, and that was 2 years ago. And to see the investments being made and the ability of our educational institutions to be able to pivot, take advantage of those things, and in order to expand their offerings and to people locally, that we have a workforce ready to go. When I think of the innovative employers that take these matters into their own hands, like JP Bouma Tool and Die, the training that they do right on hand, the partnerships that like Walters Welding has been able to do with SNP, when I think of the visionaries that remain at the Grand Valley Educational Society that are trying to find different ways of solving these solutions, it's really, really exciting to be a part of and to be able to advocate and see those programs coming through, and the teaching that happens and even the short programs that happen through, even just in Brantford at the at the different places that just help people upskill and learn new skills. I mean, it's not just our big educational institutions. These things are happening every day in order for people to get better. A lot of it's awareness, but we have, and talking to Heidi about innovative ways of getting more students, and, you know, the goal of having our own concurrent education program back at Laurier in Brantford, and the things that we're going through in order to get those audiences with the Minister of Training and Labor and the Minister of Colleges and Universities. It's a very, very exciting time, and Phil is absolutely right. There are so many businesses that are crying for employees. There's so much work out there, and how to activate our workforce. And I think in our high schools, then I see the work that our teachers do there, but the ability to instill hope and expose. And I was talking with John Tibbetts not too long ago. Imagine if we could have every talking about this with John Utley too, with the Skilled Trades Alliance. If we could have every high school guidance counselor go through some of the incredible manufacturing facilities that we have in the community, like the stuff they do at Patriot Forge, it's so fascinating. And to expose young people to the fact that there's these incredible careers right here in the community that they could get into quickly. And then to bring those guidance counselors back with a select set of students that I think could benefit from that kind of exposure, and having those conversations with Linda Parker at SNP, it's actually a very thrilling time, and I think we can get through this. But I think it's going to take some innovative things, and then actually working with the Grand Area District School Board, having those conversations about how we can move forward to bring that stuff into high schools and expanding the exposure to students is very, very good. And I've been so thrilled with Joanne Roberto, the new education director with the Grand Area District School Board, just another visionary person who can solve problems and find innovative ways to do that. So again, we have a lot of challenges, real challenges. And I've had those conversations too with those businesses that if they could hire 20 people today, they'd do it. And if those 20 people actually showed up who said they were going to show up. But we also have a lot of great things in place that can help us through that. So I'm very excited by the potential that we have in the community. Sorry, I got talking fast. I got too excited.
Now we've got a couple of questions, but I'm going to unfortunately, due to time, and I'm going to stop it at one more last question, and I'm going to ask you to keep it to 60 seconds each. And we'll start with Will. How does the new U.S. administration change how your level of government supports the agri-food and natural resource sectors?
60 seconds. We need to be energy sovereign. We need to be food sovereign. I've been quite dismayed actually by the protectionist policies that are coming through from the American federal government, and not just the damage that they do to the Canadian economy, to the Ontario economy, but there's 19 states whose chief trading partner is the province of Ontario. And in fact, Ontario, if it was a country, would be the #3 trading partner of the United States of America, period. And so to see a new administration there, and the closing down of Line 5, if you've seen that by a governor in Michigan, I think it's time we take a hard look at. And I had that conversation with the premier last Thursday, actually, and just said, we need to take these matters in hand. We need to be able to take care of our own businesses and our own energy needs here in the province of Ontario. We have access to those things, and we should just make those things a reality. And I think the opportunities to be able to expand those businesses would be very, very good. And but I think we can also capitalize on the economic uncertainty that's happening in the United States right now, and the political uncertainty. And maybe that's not a nice thing to say, but the fact is, we are stable. We are going in the right direction. We are getting ahead of this. And I think we can see those investments coming this way.
Thank you, Will. Phil.
The administration in the United States is bad news for our exporters and agri-food businesses that have the United States as their #1 customer are going to be suffering as a result of the closure of markets that, as the United States kind of withdraws within itself, as this administration has said, Buy America only, restricting other countries receiving exports from our country. Second, on the natural resources side, I look at it from the national level, obviously. There are provinces in this country, such as Alberta, that are decimated by the current policies of natural resource development, and where our government has taken them, basically wanting to shut down an industry that has provided, believe it or not, most of the bulk of the tax dollars that provide us with the great social programs we have. You know, whether you're believe in using natural resources such as natural gas and oil for the sustainability of our society, they certainly are necessary for the next 50 years, most experts would say, as we make a transition to different types of energy and and off of fossil fuels. But all of that said, the U.S. administration certainly is not going to be a fan of, as we've seen with the cancellation of the Keystone XL project, and really no hope for internally for an Energy East pipeline. Instead, we're putting it all on the rails and taking those risks.
Thank you, Phil, and thank you to both of you, Phil and Will. Donations will be made to charities of their choices for their presentations this morning, and Will has chosen Why Not Youth Center, and Phil has chosen Crossing All Bridges Learning Center. Thank you once again to our post-secondary partners who sponsored this morning's event. And I would also like to take one quick opportunity to acknowledge the recent retirement announcement of Executive Director Joanne Lewis from Brant Community Services Foundation. Our community appreciates your 20+ year commitment to the foundation. Congratulations, Joanne. And we would like to thank Mike and his team from Pink's Productions for all of their hard work coordinating and putting on our production today. And thank you to all of you for joining us this morning. We hope to see you at our 2021 AGM President's Virtual event, which is scheduled for Tuesday, March 30th at 1 o'clock. And don't forget to register for our Business Excellence Awards, which is scheduled for Thursday, May 20th at 4 p.m. Thank you very much and have an awesome weekend.